Overview. The RJ is fitted with 2 nose wheels and 4 main wheels. Differential braking on the main wheels is powered by either the yellow or green hydraulic systems. An anti-skid system is available in both the yellow and green systems. The aircraft is fitted with an emergency braking system. However, anti-skid may not be available when this system is in use. The brakes are cooled by electrically powered brake fans. That completes the overview for wheels, tyres and brakes. The next section will cover a general description of wheels, tyres and brakes. Wheels and tyres. All tyres are tubeless and inflated with nitrogen to a minimum pressure dependent on aircraft weight and centre of gravity. Details are contained in the manufacturer's operating manual. Tyres are rated for maximum ground speed indicated on the side wall as either 190 miles per hour or 210 miles per hour. A tyre must be changed when it is worn to the base of any tread groove. In order to prevent the tyres from exploding after prolonged or severe braking, a fusible plug is fitted in each main wheel. This will cause the tyre to completely deflate when a certain temperature is reached. Brake system. Each pilot's brake pedal is mechanically linked to a brake control valve. The captain's left and right pedals operate the yellow system brake control valves, and the first officer's left and right pedals operate the green system brake control valves. Applied brake pressure is indicated by 2 brake pressure gauges located on the captain's instrument panel. One indicates the yellow pressures left and right, the other indicates green pressures left and right. Each brake control valve supplies hydraulic pressure proportional to the force applied to the brake pedals. Both left pedals and both right pedals are mechanically connected. This allows the left green and yellow and right green and yellow brake control valves to be operated together by either the captain or the first officer. It is only possible to select one hydraulic system to power the brakes. The aircraft is normally operated with the brakes selected to yellow. The yellow or green brake system is selected from the brakes panel on the centre console. The brake select switch controls a solenoid valve in each hydraulic supply line. Selecting green with the brake select switch will power both valves. The yellow valve will close and the green valve will open. Selecting yellow, or a loss of electrical power to both valves, will close the green valve and open the yellow valve. The accumulator within the yellow hydraulic system is used to maintain brake pressure. If accumulator pressure falls below 2,500 psi, brake accumulator low pressure will light on the hydraulics panel. How can the brake accumulator be pressurized during engine start? From the brake control valves, pressure is transferred to 4 skid control valves located in the hydraulics bay. When the aircraft is stationary, the skid control valves are fully open and pressure from the brake control valves is applied to 4 brake cylinders on each wheel. Hydraulic lines from the skid control valves and the brake control valves return fluid to the yellow and green reservoirs. The park brake is applied with Brake Select on yellow by fully depressing the captain's brake pedals and pulling the Pull to Park on yellow handle. This action mechanically locks the yellow brake control valves fully open and applies yellow hydraulic system pressure to the brake units. If the park brake is selected with Brake Select on green, automatic changeover to the yellow system will occur. This is indicated by both yellow and green annunciators lighting. This must be avoided to prevent green hydraulic fluid transferring to the yellow system. The action of applying the park brake also electrically closes 2 park brake valves in the yellow system return line to minimize leakage and maintain brake pressure for 2.5 to 3 hours. When both valves are fully closed, the Park Brake On annunciator on the central warning panel will illuminate. In order to provide electrical power to close the park brake valves, the emergency DC bus bar must be powered before the park brake can be applied. The yellow and green annunciators will not be lit at the emergency power level. The brake select switch must be out, yellow system selected, before the park brake is selected. A microswitch operated by the park brake handle switches the flight data recorder off when the park brake is selected. This is indicated by Flight Recorder Off on the central status panel and Flight Data Recorder Fail on the Flight Data Recorder panel. The park brake is released by applying pressure to the captain's brake pedals whilst preventing the park brake handle springing down. A toggle switch on the brakes panel marked Emergency and Normal allows selection of the emergency braking system. With the switch in the emergency position, the DC pump is signalled to run continuously to provide emergency yellow system pressure. Although yellow is normally selected, If an emergency selection is made with the brakes selected to green, an automatic changeover to the yellow system will occur. This is indicated by both yellow and green annunciators lighting. When will both yellow and green brake select annunciators be lit at the same time? In addition to the 4 normal brake cylinders, 2 retraction brake cylinders are fitted to each wheel. These are supplied from the green hydraulic system and are used to stop wheel rotation when the landing gear is selected up. After a short time delay, the retraction brakes are released to prevent the brakes freezing on. Each brake unit is fitted with a brake wear indicator. When the pin is flush with the pin support, the unit should be replaced. Cooling fans and brake temperature indication. The main wheels have brake cooling fans controlled by a 3-position switch located on the anti-skid and lift spoilers panel. When selected on, the brake fans will operate continuously. When selected to auto, they will operate whenever the nose gear is locked down. Operation of the brake fans is indicated by brake fans selected on the central status panel. Each brake unit has a temperature sensor fitted. 2 standards of brake temperature indicator may be installed in the center console. In the earlier type of display, the temperature of a selected brake unit is shown digitally. Each unit is selected by individual buttons. The hottest unit is selected by the maximum button. A red overheat caption for each unit illuminates at 650 degrees Celsius. The later type of display shows brake temperature between 50 degrees Celsius and 750 degrees Celsius on 4 columns of light-emitting diodes, LEDs. External checks. The nose wheel tyres are checked for condition and inflation. The right main wheel tyres are checked for condition and inflation. Any damage or irregular wear to any of the tyres must be reported for engineering inspection. The brake wear indicator is checked for excessive wear. The condition of the brake fans and all hydraulic lines and hoses are checked for leaks. The left main gear is inspected in a similar way. That completes the external checks of the aircraft. The next lesson takes you through the normal flight deck operations associated with wheels, tyres and brakes, beginning with the pre-flight checks. Pre-flight. On completion of this section, you should be able to carry out the checks required to prepare the braking system for flight. After the batteries are switched on, check that the park brake is applied. The emergency brake selector must be at normal and the brake select button must be out. Yellow system selected. Why must the emergency brake selector switch not be selected to emergency? If the park brake is not applied, pressure should be applied to the captain's brake pedals and the brake select handle is pulled out. The brake pedal should then be released. The brake pressure, indicated on the yellow system brake pressure gauge, may be increased by use of the DC pump. Anti-skid should be selected on. The park brake must be on and the AC bus bars powered before the system is tested. The anti-skid inoperative and anti-skid fault annunciators on the overhead panel should be checked out. The anti-skid fault yellow button on the ground test panel is pressed. The anti-skid inoperative and anti-skid fault annunciators will light, along with the anti-skid annunciator on the central warning panel. The test button should be released immediately the anti-skid fault annunciator goes out. This occurs approximately 4 seconds after the test button is pressed. The anti-skid inoperative annunciator should go out after approximately 10 seconds. The test is then repeated for the green system using the anti-skid fault green test button. Before engine start, the park brake must be checked on, with yellow only indicating on the brake select switch, and a minimum of 2,200 psi on the yellow brake pressure gauge. Park brake on should be lit. After engine start, the brake fans are switched to auto to provide cooling air for the brakes during taxi and in the event of a rejected takeoff. Brake fan select on will illuminate because the nose landing gear is locked down. If pushing back, brake accumulator low pressure must be out before the park brake is released. If it lights during pushback, accumulator pressure should be increased. Either the AC or DC pump can be used, but the AC pump must not be used if an engine is being started. Before the tow bar is disconnected, the park brake must be set and the yellow system pressure checked at a minimum of 2,200 psi. When ready to taxi, the park brake is released and the yellow brakes are checked. When the aircraft is clear of obstructions, the green system is checked. In order to avoid transfer of fluid between the two systems, ensure that brake pressure is 0 before selecting yellow or green. To prevent the brakes overheating during taxi, allow the aircraft to accelerate before evenly applying approximately 500 psi to the brakes to reduce speed to a walking pace before allowing the aircraft to accelerate again. In cold weather, the brake cooling fans should be selected as required to maintain brake temperatures above 50 degrees Celsius to prevent them freezing on. This is most likely to occur following gear retraction after a takeoff from a runway where slush could accumulate on the brakes. Takeoff is performed with the brakes selected to yellow. Pre-flight checks. On completion of this section, you should be able to carry out the checks required to prepare the braking system for flight. Check that the emergency brake selector on the brakes panel is at normal. Having checked that the yellow hydraulic system is selected, by checking that the brake select button is out, check that the park brake is applied. Select the anti-skid master switch to on and check that the anti-skid inoperative and anti-skid fault annunciators are out. Press the anti-skid fault yellow button on the ground test panel and check that the anti-skid inoperative and anti-skid fault annunciators have lit. Check that the anti-skid annunciator on the central warning panel is lit. Release the anti-skid fault yellow button when anti-skid fault goes out. Click the anti-skid fault yellow button and check anti-skid inoperative goes out after a short delay. Check that the park brake is on and that the yellow hydraulic system is selected. Check that there is a minimum of 2,200 psi on the yellow brake pressure gauge and that the park brake on annunciator is lit on the central warning panel. Switch the brake fans to on and check that the brake fans select on annunciator on the central status panel is lit. In flight. Before landing, the yellow brake system is checked by applying pressure to the pedals and observing a rise on the brake pressure gauges. When pressure is released, the indication on the brake pressure gauges must return to 0. Anti-skid inoperative. Indication of the anti-skid system being inoperative is given by both anti-skid fault and anti-skid inoperative on the anti-skid and lift spoilers panel and the anti-skid on the central warning panel. An attempt should be made to clear the warnings by selecting the alternative brake system. If this is unsuccessful, anti-skid may be unavailable, and extreme caution must be exercised when braking. Landing distance may be increased by up to 60%. Rejected takeoff. If the decision is made to reject a takeoff, maximum brake pressure, 3,100 psi, must be applied. Damage to the tyres and brakes is possible following a rejected takeoff. The brake units must be inspected before further use. However, the tyres may have sustained internal damage which is not visible. Depending on the amount of energy absorbed, the main wheel tyres may need to be scrapped. For safety reasons, after a rejected takeoff or flapless landing, do not approach the main wheels for 15 minutes. Loss of braking. If yellow system braking fails, the green system is selected. If normal braking is still not restored, the emergency yellow system is selected. Anti-skid is not available with the emergency yellow system selected, and extreme caution must be exercised when braking. Landing distance may be increased by up to 60%.